Hello, I'm Lloyd Bonson and welcome to Rockingham for the latest round of the Competition Car Insurance Ford Fiesta Championship. Mixed qualifying conditions for classes A and B has seen the order shaken up a little bit. I'll hand you over to Richard to go through the current championship positions and the grid for race 1.
Thanks very much, Lloyd. Welcome everybody to Rockingham Circuit near Corby in Northamptonshire for what I'm sure is going to be another entertaining programme. Here's the Championship Class A. John Langridge leads from David Elsom with Nick Tiley in third. William Torreson fourth from Ed West and Alan Donnelly. In Class B, it's Scott Baines top of the stack. Ken Bateman in second place from Nick Barton. Then Michelle Edwards, Keith Chapman fifth and Claire Kemp in sixth position. Well, as you can see, plenty of moisture out on circuit, and initially the cars going out on the dry tyre setup for the grid that looks like this. John Langridge and Nick Peters on the front row of the grid, then Nick Barton and Scott Baines, Kevin Sterling and Ian Scruton completing row 3. The fourth row of the grid, Ken Bateman and Claire Kemp, then Michelle Edwards and Keith Chapman with Nick Tiley and James Appleby on row 6. The grid completed by the returning Zena Cooper. Well, everybody going out initially on dry setup, but the race officials here at the Rock deciding that the cars can go back to pit lane and put the appropriate tyres on for the conditions. So a slight delay to the proceedings here whilst the teams get stuck in. There is James Appleby's car and championship leader John Langridge, the Class A and overall championship leader, having work done on his car as well. Not just the tyres that need sorting out, a wipe of the windows for Ken Bateman's 55 car, and everybody ready to go for a second go on the grid. But we're missing John Langridge. Langridge missing from the front row of the grid, and I'm told he's in pit lane. He had a problem, a Jensen Button type problem with a wheel nut, but he's going to start from the pit lane. There he is at the end of the pit lane, left of shot. So not a great start from Nick Peters, who inherited pole position. Scott Baines in white gets the jump. In second position, it's Nicholas Barton, who got the Class B pole. Ken Bateman coming up into third. And this is the view from John Langridge. Well, I did say in earlier programmes I'd like to see John doing a bit of overtaking. He's been driving away from the field at the front of the order every time we've seen him. But now he's got his work cut out, John Langridge. Let's see what he can do. So Langridge, championship leader, 134 points to David Elsom's 102 points, but the race leaders look like they've got... This is great driving from everyone. It's unusual that everybody gets around Dean without incident, but they've done it as Nick Barton takes the lead. Nick Barton straight to the lead, but goes wide, loses momentum, and through on the inside goes Scott Baines. Now these two were very much closer at Brands Hatch in round 4, or the fourth event, I should say, of the championship. Ken Bateman in third. Leading Class A is Ian Scruton. Great stuff from Scruton, the red and yellow car, only his second meeting in the Fiestas, the ex-oval racer. Great to see him making the transition to the big circuits and doing it so well. Leading class in only his second race. John Langridge, let's keep our eyes peeled towards the back of the field. Langridge starting to tack himself onto the back of the rear of the field. Scott Baines, the race leader then, the man from Ely in Cambridgeshire. One of the shortest distances that he'll have to travel to race here as we look at the battle for third position. Ian Scruton, got to say, handling the extra power of the SI very well in third position. It's great to see the Class B cars coming to the fore, as it were, here. And it shakes the order up. It's great variety for the drivers this weekend as well. Through the Brook S's, the cars come back onto the main straight. The Rockingham circuit, the purpose-built 1.5 mile oval circuit, American style oval. Let's look at Claire Kemp trying to pass Kevin Sterling. Very close indeed there, those two cars. Kevin Sterling, the dark blue and white car. Claire Kemp running in the white car with the blue trim. And this is the view from John Langridge, who's making up paces from the back of the field, past Keith Chapman in the 17 car, down into turn 1. If you make a mistake here at Rockingham on this part of the track, it's bang into the concrete wall. I hope and pray that we don't get that happening today, because boy can it hurt. Langridge, so look how brave he is, going around the outside line and passes the man who started on pole, Nick Peters. It was Langridge that snuck in the fastest lap in qualifying in the late stages of the session. He was still 7/10 clear of everybody. All that work he did on the run down to Dean has been undone now. He's going to overtake Kevin Sterling, who I think's got a bit of a problem. James Appleby right of shot. Appleby down the inside as they go into Yentwood. Keith Chapman runs wide in the 17 car. And as Lloyd said, conditions changeable. There are dry parts of the circuit which are very much going to suit the SIs over the Zetec's, but at the moment we've got Zetec's out front, and the SI Championship leader John Langridge trying to carve his way through in the number 7 car. Great onboard shot, wipers working. I don't think it's actually raining outside, but there is a great deal of spray. Actually, having said that, the camera lens shows us otherwise, and indeed the lead car of Scott Baines, who comes into Tarzan. That's a tricky corner, that one. You can see the wide line they take around that hairpin and then down the school straight, which is a slight climb. You can see the climb evident there, then down towards the Brook S's, and Nick Barton starting to put the race leader perhaps under a bit of pressure. Up into third place has gone Ian Scruton, who leads Class A. Then it's Ken Bateman third in Class B at the moment. Nick Barton virtually straight lines a little bit of the S's there. Slightly wider line for Barton, who get more of a sweep round onto the main straight here at the Rock, and whether that's going to play into his hands and he'll be able to have a go at Scott Baines maybe around turn 1 and down into Dean remains to be seen. Look how Scott Baines really working hard, going right up to the wall. So Baines continues to lead, and he had the monopoly on class wins, remember, up to and including round 3 or event 3 of the year, as Barton goes down the inside line. Barton makes a move for the lead. Now he thinks better of it. That was very intelligent driving from Nick Barton, who got that momentum through from where they came out of the Brook S's. Realised he couldn't quite do it, didn't have enough momentum, went back into line, into second position. You can see circuit dry there on the inside as they go into Yentwood Corner. And Scott Baines reading it really well. Scott, as I said, won all the races, the first 3 events of the season. Nick Barton, the man behind him, really set his stall out at Brands Hatch, taking the battle to Scott by taking pole position, as he did today, and indeed 2 wins at Brands Hatch. And it's great to see these two very close together. Great for the championship and great for the entertainment point of view. Third position, nice little battle going on there with the Class A leader Ian Scruton coming under pressure from Ken Bateman in 4th. Ken Bateman the 3rd position in Class B at the moment. 4th in Class B is Claire Kemp. We saw her attacking Kevin Sterling earlier on. She's holding on to 4th place at the moment, 6th in the championship. And Scott Baines' his teammate. Baines the leader. Long school straight once again. Now Scott's got his wipers off, which does indicate things are beginning to dry up. You can see the wipers dealing with the spray on Nicholas Barton's car. Nick, the man from Biggin Hill in Kent. So up into 3rd position has gone Ken Bateman. Ian Scruton down to 4th. Then it's Claire Kemp. And then John Langridge. So John Langridge up to 2nd place now in class. Great drive from Langridge. Behind him is Michelle Edwards, who is running in Class B. So John Langridge making excellent progress. And you've got to say, if you have to start at the back of the grid anywhere in the UK and you've got the ability to get past, then Rockingham circuit is the place to do it. Look at the big wide open spaces, plenty of overtaking opportunity. I know that the circuit tends to polarise drivers. Some drivers love it, some perhaps not so keen. From a commentary point of view, it's a great circuit because there are so many overtaking opportunities here. It's a good spectator circuit too, because you can see most of the track. It's a very technical circuit as well. And for most of these guys, it's the first time that they've raced here. We've only had, I think, the one Fiesta meeting before, about 5 or 6 years ago, which I was lucky enough to commentate on at the circuit. And unfortunately, one of the rounds being null and voided there because the cars, changeable weather conditions that day too, the cars didn't get out on circuit for their second race, which was a great, great shame, as Nick Tiley goes through past Nick Peters and into, I think, 3rd position in class. So Nick Tiley on for a podium here. Nick Tiley 3rd in Class A, 92 points. He's only 10 points behind his teammate David Elsom, who's not with us this weekend. David off enjoying a little bit of sunshine on a well-earned break, and he potentially here is going to lose 2nd position in the championship to Nick Tiley, his teammate for the Twin Cam Racing team. And I'm told that even though David's enjoying a little bit of sun, David Elsom, that he's checking the times on the TSL live timing and feeding in a bit of advice to Nick Tiley, who is driving well from the looks of things. And he'll be pleased that after some very early season problems with his engine to put those behind him. But we're looking back at Claire Kemp, who is running in 5th place at the moment. So Claire having a good run in Class B, 4th position in Class B. I think yet to break onto the podium, but you get the feeling that might happen today as we go on board with John Langridge, who has got to try and pass Ian Scruton to take the class lead. It'd be great for Scruton if he can get a class win in only his 2nd meeting in the competition car insurance Ford Fiesta Championship. So Langridge doing a super job at the moment, down out of the Dean Hairpin, down into Yentwood. Claire Kemp's car in, oh, beg your pardon, it's Keith Chapman, isn't it, in front now. So Ken Bateman in white and red, and Ken, who has been passed once again by Ian Scruton, who's up into 3rd place.
With so much racing going on in the world, you'd have to be a 4-headed monster to keep up with it all. Luckily, we have that. Join Peter Keane, Bill Wood, Errol Tucker, and their guest driver analyst each week for an opinionated look at the news coming out of the racing world. Remember, it's GoRacingTV.com for all your racing and video needs.
Alan Donnelly got a fastest lap at Brands Hatch, and Ed West managed to, who's not with us today, managed to get a fastest lap at Brands Hatch. But Langridge clearly back in the zone as we go to the leader. Scott Baines in car number 73, still being chased by Nick Barton. You've got to say, Nick Barton, the last couple of rounds, really gaining form. Tight line at Tarzan Hairpin, down the school straight they go. The 88 car still trying to hunt him down. A slight rise as they come along School Straight, and then it dips down towards the Brook S's, which is where they are now. And Barton starting to pile the pressure on. Line for line, about the same at the moment. Baines from Barton. Great to see the Class B cars in the lead overall as they come out of turn 4 across the grid lines. There's a driving standards flag going out for somebody. I can't see at the moment who that was on the starting gantry, but here comes Barton having a look for the lead. Scott Baines really under pressure here as they go around turn 1, and Barton this time's going to have a go for the sweep around the outside line. This is big brave stuff from Nick Barton, out towards the wall. Now is he going to outbrake himself down to Dean? He's done it enough times today. No, he's going to turn in. That was certainly notice of intent from Nick Barton. Baines has got it covered when they go into the hairpin. You can see Barton was looking for that outside line which would convert to the inside at this corner, but Baines had that covered. Great racecraft from the two of them. So Scott Baines hangs on to lead position. Meanwhile behind them John Langridge is closing in and perhaps has got the idea in his head that it may well be another overall win for him. He's closing up on these leading Fiesta Z-Tex, the Class B cars, really showing the way around today, but John Langridge closing them in, and it's been an enthralling battle between these two in this race thus far. This particular circuit we're using at Rockingham today, 1.94 miles in length. It's one of many configurations that we've got here, stemming from the big 1.5 mile oval I mentioned. We've got short and long circuits. In terms of this sort of racing, you're only allowed to use one of the banked turns on UK motor racing as Barton looks up the inside again, loses momentum, a little bit tight on the exit at Tarzan. As I mentioned, you can use one of the banked turns, either turn 4 or turn 1, and I think the reason we're using turn 1 is because if you don't use turn 1 you have to use a chicane, and it can be a little bit hairy when you've got 20 cars piling in there from time to time. Barton just, I think, made a little error as he came out of the Brook S's there and runs wide. That's given a little bit of breathing space to Scott Baines. What a cracking scrap we've had between these two on this race. So it's the man from Cambridgeshire at the moment leading the man from Kent. Down into turn 1 they go again. What's happened to John Langridge? Is he still closing them down? You can see the spray coming off the wheels as they go around turn 1 out towards that way. Here comes Barton again. thinks about having a look down the inside, back to the outside line. There, to answer my question, is John Langridge. Barton's going to have a look down the inside line as well. These two very definitely slowing each other up now, but again, Scott Baines has got the exit covered, so he'll grab the inside line as they come down to Yentwood. Here is the view from John Langridge off the battle for the lead. Barton looks down the inside line, and he's going up the inside of Scott Baines, but Baines cuts across. Outside, wide sweep for him. Langridge is coming up into second position. Langridge through on the inside into Chapman, fighting the wheel. Can he hang on to it? Yes, he can. Has he hung on to it enough and got enough momentum to go around the outside? No, he hasn't. Barton hangs on to second position, and Barton's going to be cursing that moment because he's losing Scott Baines. Scott Baines is getting away here and looking for what will be his 7th win of the year. Barton is defending from Langridge. Well, really, you've got to I wonder whether it would have been better for Nick Barton maybe just to let Langridge go through and then tag on the back of him. But of course he's a racer, and when someone else comes up behind him, he's going to fight that one all the way to the flag. But John Langridge challenging for second overall, still in the class lead, I remind you. Down School Straight they go again, down towards the Brook S's. Langridge here has got the line as they come through. Langridge side by side into the S's, up into second position. Nick Barton down to third. Barton still fighting. What Barton really probably needs to do now is try and follow the line of John Langridge and maybe pick up a bit of a tow, but perhaps it is all too late because Scott Baines crosses the line, still in lead position. Nick Barton, you can see, losing a bit of momentum now. He really is going to be cursing that run by John Langridge. Has gone up into second position, but Scott Baines still leading. Now, how defensive is Scott Baines going to be? He knows that Langridge isn't challenging him in terms of the overall points, but it's a matter of pride taking overall winners. Nick Barton from nowhere. Incredible stuff from Barton, back up into second position. Absolutely brilliant from Barton. So John Langridge, it's not very often you see Langridge overtaken by anyone, let alone a Class B car, but that's what's happened there, and Barton has to go for the lead again. This is incredible stuff from the Kent man, who is really gunning for it. Scott Baines still there, but Langridge fights back down the inside line as they go side by side again. Barton hanging on to second position. Langridge in third, still leading his class. Back behind them, Ken Bateman. He's running third in class. Ian Scruton coming under pressure from Claire Kemp. We just saw them go through. Down Steel Straight, a very, very tiny straight, that one. And John Langridge still in third position, but the Class B cars here are an absolute class in this race. Down towards the Tarzan hairpin they go, and it's still Scott Baines from Nick Barton in second position. John Langridge possibly is maybe a spent force now. He's dropping back a little bit. Into the Tarzan hairpin they go, wide, and I would say correct line there from Scott Baines. Leaves the door open for Barton, who tries to close in again. Over that small hump now, and here comes Langridge down into second position again at the Brook S's. We saw him pass here earlier on in the race, but this time Nick Barton's got it covered. He is still mindful of being able to pass Scott Baines in lead position. This is the view from John Langridge again, third position, Class A leader. Onto turn 4 they go, back onto the main straight. Langridge up into top gear. He's going to make a move down the inside, comes out of the tow from Nick Barton, dives down the inside. And just 2 miles now to go, and he's going to sweep round the outside of Scott Baines to take the lead as well from last position from a pit lane start. But Scott Baines is there. Look at that. Nick Barton's coming up into play as well. Sensational stuff here in the A and Bs. Now, who's going to come into Dean first? It's still Scott Baines there. Scott Baines leads, John Langridge second, but here comes Nick Barton again up the inside. Barton's through into second, but Langridge is going to have the line down into the right-hander. But no, Nick Barton's fighting back on the outside line. Well, hats off to Barton here. This has been a superb drive from him, and he's still hanging on there, and he's still got a chance of the race win. This is an absolute cracker. Through Chapman Curve they go, up towards Piff Paff. Scott Baines goes wide. Barton's going to try and come up the inside, but he's about half a length back. They're turning now in towards Steel Straight. Here they come then, this short little bit of straight, Steel Straight. Langridge looks up the inside. Sometimes you get a car squeezing through there. He's too far back to do it today. But Scott Baines still under pressure on this last lap. The man from Ely looking to make it another win. Nick Barton won the last 2 races at Brands Hatch. But here comes Langridge down as they go into the Tarzan hairpin. And Normally the wider line is slightly faster. Let's see how that works for Barton. Yes, it works there. Langridge is on the outside line now as they head down towards Brook. Unless he chops over on the way down into Brook. Yes, he does. Look at that. Sweeps down the inside. I'm not sure whether Barton saw him coming, but Barton cedes second position. Langridge is second. Runs wide into the S's. Barton's back into second place. They're virtually door handling. This is superb stuff from these two. Still side by side. The overall win is going to go to Scott Baines. And second position now surely will go to John Langridge. There is the checker flag. That's the way it pans out. Scott Baines takes the overall win for Class B. John Langridge second. Nick Barton in third takes second in class. A fantastic race in the competition car insurance Ford Fiestas. Baines the winner from John Langridge, who wins Class A from Nick Barton. Then Ken Bateman, Ian Scruton second in Class A, and Claire Kemp in sixth place. Seventh and a podium for Nick Tiley in Class A ahead of James Appleby, then Michelle Edwards, Kevin Sterling 10th from Keith Chapman, and Nick Peters in 12th place with 13th going the way of Zena Cooper.
Scott, fantastic win in the first race here at Rockingham, but you were pushed all the way by Nick Barton. Talk us through it.
We got off the line very well. I think whoever was on the front row in the 1800, he stalled it or he didn't go anywhere. Got the jump on Nick into the first bend. I was quite ginger going into the first bend and the very last chicane because I went straight on there in the damp conditions yesterday in qualifying a couple of times. It was a case of sort of suss the track out because I've never been here. Kind of suss out and just try and push as much as I could without falling off. So we did that. Yeah, Nick stayed with me all the way really. It was kind of he kept trying to go up the inside and cut back and bits and bobs, but I just tried to sort of park my car on the apex wherever he was. It was a good bit of mirror watching and really just try and get in his way where he was coming at me. Slow him down really, which is what we did. So it was a good race. He kept me very honest. He drove very well. 1800 come at us at the end, which wasn't ideal. He got a little bit in between us, which I think maybe could have sat beyond, which may have helped us slightly. But we won, so look forward to race 2. See how we go from there.
Nick, a great race here in the wet this morning at race 1. Talk us through it because you had quite a good battle with Scott Baines, didn't you?
Yeah, I got a pretty poor start, and went off on the third corner, I think. But then managed to tag behind Scott and just stick to him. And everywhere I tried to get past, I couldn't. But we'll have to try again in the second race. Hopefully it gets wet again, and we'll go from there and see what we can do.
Certainly, there are a couple of times coming into the start-finish straight and into the first corner where you seem to be very close. Did you feel that there were good opportunities for you to get past?
Yeah, every lap I was trying, but unfortunately Scott had the right lines covered, and whatever I did, couldn't get past him. I didn't really want to hit him and cause any aggravation, so just had to sit back and try and make a safe manoeuvre, but unfortunately it didn't happen.
Now, towards the end of the race, John Langridge in the Class A car managed to get in between you. Did that hamper your progress slightly? Did you feel that was a problem?
Yeah, I think that completely destroyed my chances of getting past Scott, to be honest. Unfortunately, things happen, so can't do anything about it now.
Now, the conditions are still a little bit mixed. It's drying at the moment, but there could be some more rain for this afternoon. Is that what you're hoping for?
I think so, yeah. I haven't got any good slicks, so hopefully it will rain so we can keep with the wets. They seem to be working well this morning.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Nick, and we look forward to speaking to you again later on.
Brilliant, hope to.
State your desires.
Speed, adrenaline, competition.
Calculating. Result in 3, 2, 1. The National Auto Sport Association. Start here.
Pete Daniels from Daniels Motorsport, you've been involved in the Ford Fiesta Championship for a number of years. Talk us through your involvement.
Well, we went into the Fiesta Championship in '91 when it was sort of a bit freelance, and then in '92, '93 went into the touring car package as a support event, similar to what the Clios do now. And then in, I think it was around about '95, come to the end of the Mark III, and they brought in the Mark IV 1400, And then Kevin got involved with the 1800 series, and I think when we first started the first season in there, I think we only had about 7 cars, Kevin, didn't we?
It was a few more than that, yeah, but it was a sparse field, yeah.
And then basically, I think it's grown and grown and grown, and then in 2002 or 2001, the 1400 joined the 1800 championship. And basically, we were in there at day one. We already had all the gear from the Toka series, so it seemed the best solution to carry on and keep going with them. And I think the championship's grown and grown and grown. Then obviously the ST come along, which was a new model. Kevin thought we ought to push for a new shape, and I mean that's now sort of overtaken. I think what we all believe would actually happen. And at Brands there we had sort of 26. I think we've had up to 30 at some time or other.
So on to race 2. Are we going to see an overall win in this one for John Langridge, or can Scott Baines beat him again? Scott Baines on pole, Langridge alongside, Nick Barton and Ken Bateman on row 2, with Ian Scruton and Claire Kemp on row 3. Fourth row, Nick Tiley and James Appleby. Then it's Michelle Edwards and Kevin Sterling, Keith Chapman and Nick Peters on row 6. Row 7 completed by Cena Cooper. "20-minute race in prospect. Conditions a lot drier, so we can expect the SIs to perform a little bit stronger in this one. Full field of cars ready to race. No non-finishes in race 1. That is such a great result here at Rockingham. Not a great start by John Langridge. You've got to say it's not his strongest point starting, but he gets through the gears real well down into turn 1, round the outside of Scott Baines. Nick Barton in 3rd place. Then it's Ken Bateman in 4th position, coming under a bit of pressure from Nick Peters, who's made a great start in car number 12. Nick Peters in blue and red, round the outside, up into 3rd place, challenging Nick Barton. Scott Baines going a bit defensive there in white. Ken Bateman coming under pressure from Nick Tiley, and a spin for Michelle Edwards in the 77 car down towards the back end of the field. That's the sort of thing I was talking about in race 1 that you tend to expect here at Rockingham, because so many cars going down into that first corner, and John Langridge has gone wide. Langridge is wide. He's got all the work to do again. Talk about making hard work for yourself, Langridge, today, my friend. He's got down to 3rd position, but the one thing we know now is that John, of course, can pull himself back from there. He's rejoined ahead of Ken Bateman, but down in 4th position. Race leader Scott Baines. Nick Barton in 2nd position. 3rd position is Nick Peters. We're looking at Nick Tiley in 45. Another good result here will put Nick Tiley up into 2nd position in the championship, as we mentioned, and he's got away ahead of Ian Scruton, who's running 4th at the moment in Class A, about to be passed by Kevin Sterling. Sterling having a look at the inside line there, but unsuccessfully at the moment, as we look at Peters having a challenge on for 2nd position with Nick Barton. John Langridge right behind him, so Langridge already about to challenge for the class lead. Points the car down the inside line. Good momentum through turn 4 for Langridge, and up into the lead once again. But is he? Nick Peters round the outside line, very quick off the line. Langridge going for 2nd position, but 3 wide as they go into turn 1. As I say, you can't do that anywhere else in UK motorsport, not as perhaps safely as you would see there. Ian Scruton gives chase to Claire Kemp once again. Claire's having a really good run in the championship. 4th position in the first race of the day. Scruton running 4th in class at the moment. Ahead of them, Nick Tiley in 45, who is potentially on for another podium. That's going to be good for his championship chances. Maybe a wee bit of contact there between Peters and Nick Barton. This is the view from Nick Barton's machine. So these two, difference in class, of course. Nick Barton running in Class A and Nick Peters running in Class A. A car leading B at the moment, but B putting a bit of pressure on. Barton closes up under braking. We're on the second part of the lap here, heading down in towards the Tarzan hairpin. The line's going to be a little bit different to what we saw in race 1. In theory, we should see cars. You can see the cars going a lot tighter to the apex here. In the wet, very definitely a wider line tends to pay off here. So the climb up along the school straight. Scott Baines still leading, but now, or is he? No, he isn't. John Langridge back into lead position. Langridge leads. Scott Baines in second position. Baines still leading Class B. Nick Peters in third place. Fourth position is Nick Barton. Those two still relatively close, and Scott Baines, I think, will know that he doesn't have too much hope unless the rain comes of closing in on the race leader. John Langridge, the man from Bodiam, ex-Super 1 Carter, looking to continue his domination of the championship thus far. It's not just about great driving from John Langridge this year, it's about very good car preparation. No retirements at all for him thus far, and this could well be his 10th consecutive race win, which I think may equal the record in Class A's and B's. I'll have to check that out. My records only go back a few years. But certainly for a newcomer, it's got to be a record, John Langridge. And let's hope that he can move onwards and upwards in the motorsport chain. Maybe into the STs next year. That will be really good to see. So this is good stuff from Nick Peters, who's managed to get himself now up into second position ahead of Scott Baines. You can see Langridge away down the road. Then it's Nick Barton, followed by Ken Bateman in the red and white car. Bit of a gap back to the cars behind them. Scott Baines probably a little bit chuffed here to have someone to race with again. He's in the what you would perceive to be the slightly slower class and battling hard with the newcomer to the championship in the number 12 car. Let's have a look to see what Nick Peters can do in the way of defence at the moment. He'd probably be better off getting his head down and trying to catch John Langridge. Oh, and a spin. That's Michelle Edwards off again in the 77 car. Not the happiest of races for the man from Chelsfield. He rejoins though, and we rejoin the battle between Scott Baines and Nick Peters. Second position at the moment for Peters. Baines tries to close him down. They reel off another lap in this 20-minute race. 2 20-minute races for the Fiestas each weekend, with free practice and qualifying on day 1 of the meeting. The 2 races normally on day 2. I think the exception to that is sometimes the Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch at the end of the year, as we look at Nick Barton trying to get up the inside for the race leading Class B. So Nick Barton's on the case. Ken Bateman right behind him as well. Let's have a look, see whether, look at this, the top 3 in Class B all literally together, and Scott Baines, who had that dominance in the early part of the season, not only now been caught by Nick Barton, but coming under pressure from Ken Bateman as well. Bateman drops away just a little bit as they go onto the far side of the circuit. So Baines now getting back on the case of Nick Peters for second position, and just get the feeling that the fact that he's scrapping with Nick Peters might be slowing him up a little bit. When he gets clear space, he pulls away from the 2 chasers and then gets embroiled in this battle, and unless he can get past, I think he might find that he's got a few problems. Wide line there as he comes out of the Tarzan hairpin. He's looking for that inside line down into the Brook S's, the next corner. And is he going to be able to do it? He's too far back, I think, to maybe make a lunge into the S's, because now he has to go defensive again. Nick Barton is right behind him and challenging for the lead of Class B. Through the S's they go. You can't even overtake through there. I've seen it done many times here at the Rock. Scott Baines getting back. Okay, John Langridge away down the road, pulling away. Fastest lap again in class for him. Fastest lap in race 1 for Class. Well, look at Nick Barton really having a good go at Scott Baines around the outside of turn 1. I was about to tell you, fastest lap in race 1 for Class B was Ken Bateman, and he seems to be on the pace again as we go. Nick Barton loves this outside line here at Rockingham, down towards the Dean hairpin, but Scott Baines likes the inside even more. Turns in, Barton's going to try and get up the inside. Look at Scott Baines, look at the posture of that car, really hammering it through the hairpin. Down in towards Yentwood we go. Confident line indeed from Scott Baines in lead position. Out towards Chapman Curve they go. Still Ken Bateman running in that third position. He's got the pace too. So first, second and third in Class B. Well, I was going to say being held up by Nick Peters, but that really is not the case here. Peters at the moment maintaining the gap And even further ahead is John Langridge with this characteristic huge lead that we've seen from Langridge all season so far. Only this time, of course, he's looking in his mirrors and not seeing David Elsom in the distance, but Nick Peters, the newcomer, who's still coming under pressure from Scott Baines. Baines now looking down the inside line. I think he's managed to go through, but this is the run along School Straight. Is he going to be able to get his nose in front? It really depends what sort of momentum he's got, but he's got less power than the Class A car, and he can't quite make it stick, so he'll have to content himself with third overall, still in the class lead. Nick Barton second in class. Ken Bateman really looking sharp, third in class at the moment. They're all going to go out wide. So Scott Baines now through into that second position, and Barton and Bateman dicing hard for second position and see if they can close down on Nick Peters. Barton certainly has the speed here. Peters dives down the inside of Scott Baines, or looks down the inside as they go up into the hairpin. A lunge from him, nothing too dramatic, realises he can't do it. Scott Baines hangs on to second position. Then the run down into Yentwood. Look at Bateman in third position, challenging for second in class there.
The club, an amateur racer. Here at GoRacingTV, we salute you. And we want to give you all the tools and info to compete with the best. Find out how to do it all from your own garage by watching our Club Racer and Autocrosser shows. GoRacingTV.com, supplying all your video racing needs.
Scott Baines has got past the second position car that he's starting to get away between the last two podium scrappers in this class. Down Steel Straight, Nick Peters still there in third place, second in class. Down behind them, I think Nick Tiley will still be running third in class from Ian Scruton in Class A, and then Zena Cooper. So Barton now just getting away from Ken Bateman as they go up School Straight once again. Kevin Sterling not too far behind that battle as well, currently in fourth position in Class B. Into the Brook Esses they go once again, rejoining the circuit as they do on the exit of turn 4 of the 1.5 mile oval here at Rockingham. And Scott Bateman not getting away from that bigger Ford SI, which is still there in second position and closing up now, getting a bit of a run around turn 1. Nick Barton still in third place, but let's look at second overall. It really is beginning to happen here, and Nick Peters is trying to make his move. Outside line, he's through, he powers his way past Scott Baines back into second position. Baines goes wide momentarily there, that's to get a better run out of the hairpin. He's looking down the inside line. Nick Peters carries a bit more speed out of the hairpin, back into second position, still second overall, second in class, but still the Class B leader is Scott Baines, who is looking for his seventh win. Oh, Peters gets it all crossed up, and Nick Barton goes into the side of him. That is bitter hard luck for Nick Barton. Let's have a look at what happened. Baines was looking down the inside, just tagged Peters, who gets sideways across the track. Bang! Nick Barton really did not have anywhere to go there, and I think that's probably going to be game over for those two. Hard lines, Nick Barton. Well, just the lightest of touches on car. Sadly, a bit of damage then to Nick. But Nick Barton manages to rejoin the race, which is great to see. Now Claire Kemp coming under pressure here from James Appleby. James Appleby now, I think, running fourth in class. Let's just recap the position. Scott Baines will now lead the class from Ken Bateman. I think Kevin Sterling will be third. And then Claire Kemp followed by James Appleby. So Claire having a good, strong run once again in class, which is very good to see. The young lady from Ely hangs on to position from the Yorkshireman, who turns into slightly wider line from Claire Kemp there. Appleby still not closing in big time, but Keith Chapman very much is closing in. Down behind them, I think we've got Ian Scruton in the second Class A car, so Scruton's going to pick up another podium after the demise of Nick Peters. So Claire Kemp still running well. There's James Appleby still hanging on to 4th position, 6th position on circuit at the moment, and looking for 5th position as Keith Chapman closes in. Great view of the wide sweep on turn 4. Here we go back now. It's Zena Cooper ahead of Ian Scruton at the moment, so Zena running 2nd in Class A, and I think that's about to be 3rd, because Ian Scruton on the inside line up into 2nd in class. Felicitations, he says, as he goes past on turn 1. Zena Cooper still on the podium, 3rd position for her. Nick Tiley is back in 4th position, and some handy points for him. You've got to say, he may have car problems, but keeping it in there is very, very important. Nursing the car home to the finish is going to be good, but we still look at Ian Scruton now starting to get away from Zena Cooper. Ian with that manoeuvre up into 8th position, and the battle ahead of him, that 3-way scrap that we saw in Class A between Claire Kemp, James Appleby and Keith Chapman. Zena Cooper had an engine failure at the first round of the championship at Silverstone, you might remember, and she's getting to grips with her new engine as we go back to the race leader. John Langridge still away out front. The gap nearly 15 seconds from Scott Baines. You'd expect that from these dry conditions. Class A leading Class B, and Langridge absolutely superb once again, looking for his 10th win, as we said, of the year. Scott Baines looking for his 8th win of the year, and Langridge with pole position, fastest lap and win, so it's going to be another perfect weekend for him. Well, let's not put the curse of the commentator on him. I'm sure at some point in the season, normally you reckon to have a little bit of a duff day somewhere along the line, but he hasn't dropped a point thus far this year, and you can there are dropped scores to take into account in the championship standings as well, so he can even afford a little bit of bad luck, can John Langridge. But I'm sure the thing he'll be kicking himself for at the moment is perhaps not taking the overall win in race 1, even though it was another class win. Into Tarzan he goes, still maintaining that wide line in, clips the apex along School Straight. A lot of drivers, perhaps the more cynical drivers, referring to the infield circuit at Rockingham as a bit of a giant kart track, and I suppose that's going to suit John Langridge absolutely superbly, having come from the Super 1 competition out of the Brook Esses again. He's absolutely on his own. He's full credit to the rest of the field, nobody within lapping territory, even Nick Tiley with his problems as he goes on to the last lap, so just 2 miles to go. This is the view from on board. The sweep, you could almost be in America racing NASCAR, couldn't you? Well, I know the power's not the same, but it really does give the drivers a real buzz here at the Rock, going around turn 1, out to the wall, down the gears, into the Dean hairpin for the last time. And this is the man who is rewriting the Class A record books as we speak, heading for a 10th successive win here. Down to the Dean hairpin, nips the apex just wide. We've seen drivers make mistakes and go wide there over the curbs. Some go a little bit too far onto the grass. No such problems for Langridge. He's really learnt this circuit well. Through Chapman Corner, up to the left-hander at Piff Paff, turns in now. Long sweeping left-hander, then he'll come on to Steel Straight. Nick Barton's stricken car in the background there, safe in retirement. Now heading down the slight curve down towards the Tarzan hairpin. He'll come to the outside line and get ready for the turn in. So Tarzan hairpin, that's one danger point really. You see most cars here at Rockingham tend to go off at the Dean hairpin, normally in the early stages. The odd car bites the dust at Tarzan as well. If you get stuck on the outside there in the gravel, you ain't going to go anywhere. But this man's made no mistakes at all on that lap, or indeed in this race. Through the Brook Esses for the last time, and we'll rejoin the main circuit here, the main oval circuit at Rockingham. to take his 10th win out of 10 starts in class. There is the checkered flag. John Langridge takes the win. Scott Baines is, as I said, about 15 seconds behind, but will take the Class B honours once again, with Ken Bateman getting the fastest lap. There is Ken Bateman chasing him, but it's Scott Baines that takes the win. 8th win of the season for Scott Baines in Class B. But overall, fastest lap, race win for John Langridge. Scott Baines win Class B from Ken Bateman, with Kevin Sterling on the podium. James Appleby got the better of Claire to take 5th position, and so too did Keith Chapman. Claire coming home in 7th place ahead of Ian Scruton. Then Zena Cooper in 9th place, a podium in Class A for her. Michelle Edwards 10th and Nick Tiley in 11th. The championship points look like this. Langridge pulls clear at the top with 170. Nick Tiley now up into 2nd ahead of David Elson, with Ian Scruton in 4th. Zena Cooper now into 5th place, and William Torreson in 6th. For Class B, Scott Baines the leader from Ken Bateman, with Nick Barton in 3rd. Michelle Edwards is 4th from Keith Chapman, and Claire Kemp still in 6th place.
John, a second race win here at Rockingham, although again this was a little bit hard fought at the beginning of the race.
Yes, it was. We were told at the start that there was oil down around certain places of the track, and although I noticed it on the warm-up lap, I got to I think it's Yetwood first, and threw it in a little bit too hard and got firing off over the grass, but I kept my foot in. I was a bit worried I'd hit the wall at one point. Kept the foot in and came back on, lost a few places, and had to catch up again, but it was much more straightforward than this morning, and an enjoyable result.
Did the dry conditions play more into the power that you've got on the SIs? Because I guess this morning, with it being wet, it sort of suited the Class B cars' nimbleness a bit better. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. The power of the SIs around half the circuit makes a big difference. It's quite twisty on the infield, so in the wet, the Z-Tex did very well. It's quite equal, but yes, it's certainly in the dry it helped me.
Nick, you moved up to 2nd in the championship today at Rockingham. How exciting is that for you?
Well, very exciting. I mean, I'm partly up 2nd because Dave Elson's away on holiday and missing this round. But it was very exciting during the race, because I got up into 2nd in class very briefly before going off into the field, slipping on some fluids that come out of another car, and then tried to just get a finish for 4th to get some points to keep the championship going. Also very conscious when we drop some scores, Mr. Elson's going to be coming right back at me though, so I think the next 3 rounds are all to go gung-ho and see what I can get.
We go to your home circuit at Snetterton next. Is that something you're looking forward to? You've got a bit more of experience there.
Immensely. I absolutely love the new Snetterton. Tested there in February and liked it. And when I ran there early in the series, my car was down on power, so I didn't have a very good outing. So I want to go back and show what I can do at Snetterton. And the car was running very well today till I stuck it in the field. So I've really got high hopes for it.
Do you think you and Dave Elson are going to have a big battle going on there? Because he did very well there earlier on in the year, so it could be quite an interesting race between the two of you.
I think it will be personal, but I think we'll also be having a big curry because we're quite good friends as well.
Well, we've seen some mixed weather conditions here today at Rockingham for the Competition Car Insurance Ford Fiesta Championship. We hope you've enjoyed the racing from classes A and B, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.